This just came in the mail, so let's see how it is. Alright, so we're gonna wing it with F-Zero X on the N64. Now, that intro there was a little bit of a lie. It didn't just come in the mail, it came a couple of days ago. Of course, I had to test it out and make sure it worked and to make sure I was actually somewhat good at it. So let me show you some races. Let's not do a full cup, because that is 6 races in total. Let's try a time attack. So out of all of the, let's just start with the first one, Mute City. Out of all of the races, you got yeah, sure, his name is F-Zero. You got Captain Falcon. He's pretty good, but I've actually found that the one that goes here by White Cat, I think that's just a ship's name, not sure who's the driver. I seem to do better with this than I do with actual Captain Falcon, because I tried one of the championships and I lost. I didn't lose by much, came in second overall, but when I switched over to using this ship, I seem to do better. So this is the sequel to F-Zero on the Super Nintendo. Made its way over to the N64 like most things did. This purple is your energy refillers. I'm sure you knew that. But, you know, they made their way into 3D. What I thought was really funny with this game was, as the intro starts and it zooms in onto your ship goes from a low polygon count to a medium polygon count to the full polygon count, because the N64 had this ability where it would remove polygons depending on how far away your character is. This was very obvious in Super Mario 64. When your character walks, he can get to the point where his head is just a triangle. And same thing with this. Your ship's basically 3 triangles, and then it becomes like 6, and then it becomes what it's supposed to be. And that's just so the system can handle, you know, all the polygons it has to load. It's understandable. It's an old game. That's just how it goes. I'm just kind of getting warmed up here. I guess we should have done a race that had other people in it, shouldn't we? But you get an idea. This was just so I can get down some of the information first, I guess, more than anything else. Because, I mean, it's a fun game, honestly. It's one of my favorite racing games. I've always wanted to try this because the Super Nintendo game was pretty good. In certain ways, I like it better than Mario Kart. In some ways, I don't. Now, when it comes to this version I think is even better, and it has to be in my top 10 racing games of all time, including the likes of Gran Turismo, Forza, you know, stuff like that. Let's see, we are the Gen 10 station. Good enough. So I got a time set, but I don't know how good that is, to be completely honest with you. It does start you off on novice. You can go to standard or expert. You know, I always kind of play it where the game does it for you. Now, I have finished this cup already, so let's see what's different about the Queen Cup. It does seem like it has different tracks. So once again, one of the other videos I filmed today, Paper Mario, I did kind of start in the middle of the game. So let's say we're starting in the middle of the trophies. Now on this screen, you can have really good acceleration with not a lot of top speed, or you can have a lot of top speed, not really good acceleration. I found right about here is about the best place, right at that line, or maybe a little under, because you will still have a good top speed, which is very important in this game. But acceleration on certain tracks is important as well. Now, not all tracks. Some tracks you can get away with just doing max speed completely, because there are a lot of straight lines, like what this one looks to be so far. There's a lot of straight lines. Sometimes speed's better than acceleration. Now, the one thing that I find annoying is there's a lot of bouncing going on. When there's so many racers, you end up bouncing off of them, making it difficult. So after your first lap, you unlock your boost power. You push speed to do a boost like you went over one of the triangles. It does take your energy down though, so you can't like ride the button, because it won't end well. That was actually one of the first times I played it. I rode the boost button so much that the first time I bumped into anything, I exploded. So, this guy right here is keeping up with me. He's doing boosts as well. And the guy behind me, you can see when there's somebody right behind you because it'll say check. You know, I don't know if that means, you know, check your blind spots. I don't know. Alright. I usually boost my way out of the track. So there you got to see one that has other people. You got to see how this game really worked out on the N64. It's interesting, really. You know, when you compare the N64 to like the PlayStation or the Saturn, I feel like the N64 had a lot of capabilities that were never tapped into because of some limitations. Because, well, the PS1 could do a lot of this, and it could do it particularly well. There's just a certain amount of polish. I don't know if you just saw the polygon pop in. Besides that, there's a certain amount of polish on an N64 game that makes the polygons a little smoother. I don't know if that's just how it renders them with the textures. I have never raced this track before, so there's a good chance I'm not going to do well, or I'm possibly going to fall off and crash and explode. I always have to say, like, if I had to pick a favorite from this generation, which is Generation 5, I'd probably pick the Super Nintendo. And, you know, it's really hard to classify Generation 5 as it's getting into now, how there's like a half generation going on, except the half generation now is between the same three companies. Back then, you had a half generation after the fourth generation kind of split in the early 90s when you started to get things like the 3DO and the Jaguar and stuff like that. You had to kind of think about where do they all fit into everything. Does the Jaguar and the 3DO and the CDI, all that compare to the N64? I don't think they're quite on league with it, but I think they're more more similar to that of the N64 and the PS1 than they are to things like the Super Nintendo and, you know, 4th generation. They're more 5th generation-y than they are 4th generation-y. So, a lot of those that you can't really compare them. You can't say, oh, the Jaguar really stood a chance against the N64, even though they were supposedly both 64-bit. We all know how that went. They really don't compare to each other. But I guess that's enough of a rant onto that. I'm going to continue to play this. I hope you liked this video and see what this game really looked like. There is a lot more F-Zero games. I wish I got into this when I was younger. This is really, really up there in one of my favorites. So I'll see you next time.